Badboydolls, BBD. So today I'm coming at you. This week we have been talking about a lot of the knowledge, the tools, getting cheap dolls, blah blah blah. So today, I thought we should sit back, relax, and enjoy a nice customization. I don't know if you've noticed, but I already have the Girl of the Year, Karen, and there is a number, Truly Me, I think it's like 119 or something. I don't remember her number, but she is one of the Truly Me dolls who pretty much looks like one of the Girls of the Year, but she's just like a revamped kind of version. Well, for her, I wanted to experiment really bad. I wanted to dye it all. I wanted to dye it all so bad. In my head, I thought Rit dye. You know, of course, Rit dye is our first dye. So I had a little bit of Rit dye. I really just wanted to tint her like a little bit more of an orangey color. Nothing too serious. Well, that's until I got started. So my initial thought was, okay, I'll put like a little bit of orange dye. So I'll mix some white, I'll mix some yellow, mix some pink, and then I'll add some coffee into it, right? It'll stain her and she'll be this perfectly like brown caramel color. Child, I didn't know what I was doing, but I went ahead and gave it a try. I started by unstuffing the doll. I took all of her stuffing out of her body, which took a little bit. And then I believe shortly after that, I went ahead and I had, took her eyes out of her head just to get her all prepped and prepared so that I could start my customization process. I wanted to kind of pop her arms out a little bit, but it was not working. So I ended up just saying, you know what, whatever, let me just take all this stuffing out. And I won't like take everything off. I'll just like dye her the way that I need to dye her. Here I am putting all my stuffing into a little box just so that, you know, I can keep everything nice and organized, and I'll know where it is. It won't get wet or anything weird. So here is our little coffee mixture. As you can see, I did pop her eyes out off cam, and I am just prepping my water, heating it up nice and large, and bam, here I am. I tied her to a brick. I know it sounds a little morbid, but I did tie her to a brick and try to just get all of her pieces to kind of lay underneath the water, right? I set a timer. For, I believe I set 2 timers actually. I set one timer for 3 hours, and then I went ahead and I set a second timer for 6 hours, and I was going to check on her. Boy, it was a waste. I ended up having to use something else. So I said, you know, what else dyes really well? Hair dye. So I decided to mix this hair dye color that I had inside of my house and said, you know what? Maybe if I paint this like all over her body, I could get her to like dye the color that I wanted her to dye from the beginning, blah, blah, blah. This is her after that mixture. To me personally, I don't really think it did anything. It almost made her a little bit lighter. I don't know if that's actually what happened or if I'm just bugging, but whatever. So here I am cutting her off of the brick that she was originally tied to. Yeah, a little morbid, I know. But nonetheless, I took her off of that and decided, all right, I guess I'm going to have to get all this water out of her body, A, and then B, I'm going to go ahead and start painting this on. So I started by, you know, painting the dye all over her crevices, all of her little parts, including her body. I have to say, make sure that you get the arms, make sure you get in between the toes, make sure you get, you know, those little cuppy parts, make sure you try and get inside of those, make sure you move her arms around so you can get the corners. Like, just really make sure that you're going to cover everything if you do this process. I am not going to spoil it for you, but I will say that it works. It definitely works. Is it foolproof? Not 100%. It is one of those things too that it's a little trial and error. Like, you definitely have to go back, touch it up, make sure that you're getting dye on everything. I did some research, which is why I came across this whole hair dye idea. I was on Google, just Googling like what dyes vinyl. Not that they use vinyl for the dolls, but they use some type of plastic per se, almost like rubber. So I was looking up what dyed rubber initially, and then I came across vinyl dyes. Didn't really find too much that were cheap and affordable. So I decided to go with hair dye because I was like, it's quick, it's fast, I could probably use it. Let's see what it does. So here I am reapplying a little bit more color after the first 45 minutes. One thing I know about hair dye is after 45 minutes, it normally doesn't really color too much anymore. So that was the first 45. I applied another touch up, and then I think I let her wait for like another 30 minutes. I didn't really felt like I saw too much of a difference, but I was just wishing and hoping, like, please work, please. All right. And here were my initial results. So y'all remember she was like kind of like bleachy white before. Now she has a little bit more pigment to her, which I was like, okay, I feel like I see something, But do I see something drastic? No. And we're kind of going for drastic here. Like, we're not going for chocolate, but we are going for a little bit darker. So I had another brown and I decided, okay, I'm going to mix this Revlon brown up and I'm going to try and, put that up there and see if it'll do like that same thing and just make her slightly darker. Thinking, since they're about the same color, like it would obviously work because, the first one kind of worked. So this one would kind of work as well. And it would just kind of give her like a nice little tan. I even added 40 volume developer to it as well, just to see if it would kind of boost up a little bit more, me mixing all of my developers thinking I knew exactly what I was doing. If this was hair, it would have been super brown, but it's not. It's not hair. It's not. So here I am giving it all a really, really good mix. Just trying to make it even and make it work. Like trying to make it work. And here I am once again, just wiping that color all over the body, getting the crevices, making sure I get all the corners, making sure I just touch everything just so that the dye can be even and so that she'll die. Okay, just so that she'll die. Like literally die. Not like dye, color dye, not dye. This was after that. Can y'all see the difference? Can you see the difference? Am I going crazy? I feel like I was going crazy at this point. Like, you can see the difference, but it's just not different enough. And I don't know. A part of me was like, you know what? It's different. I'm just going to leave it. I feel like if I dye it again, it's just going to make another mess. You can tell that there's a difference because you can see it on that arm. And I said, you know what? I'm going to poke her eyes in. I'm going to put her eyes in. And once I put her eyes in, I'll just leave them and that'll be that. So I ended up putting her eyes in, and I could kind of tell the difference between her eyes and her body. And it just kind of made me a little weary after I put the eyes in. And I was just kind of going back and forth in my head. I was like, I don't know what to do. I feel like I can kind of tell. I feel like I can't kind of tell. And then I put her second eye in a little weird, so I had to pop it back out again. And like, oh my gosh, y'all, this is when the super customization has been supersizing. Mind you, this is like day 2, I believe, of me doing this whole entire process. Maybe day 3 even. Like, I was working on this for at least like half of a week. Like, I was going and going. And by this point, I put her eyes in and I was like, do I like it? Do I feel like it's different? I do. And I ended up stuffing her and I said, you know what? Let's just go ahead and call it a day. Like, that's it. I did it. She got customized. I feel like it worked. Right? It looks good. Like, you can tell the difference in her skin. Like, she looks a little darker, kind of, right? Kind of. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going crazy at this point. So, this is when it got crazier. At this point, I was annoyed. I was like, after looking at it for 2 days, I was like, she doesn't look different at all. Okay. Like, she needs another round. And I probably could have used that same color again and gotten like an even like darker, like almost tan. Cause at this point she was tan. Like, she was definitely tan from her original Corinne color. But I said, you know what? I'm going to go in for a dark brown this time. Now, little to my knowledge did I know that the dark brown had a yellow tint, which is going to kind of show up a little bit. Not really, but like kinda. So I just said, you know what? It's too late. I already mixed the dye. At this point, I think it was like maybe 10 o'clock at night. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to mix it. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to go to work tomorrow and I'll check on it then. So here I am just mixing up everything, wiping it all over her body. Once again, getting those crevices. If you have lost count, we are on dye try number 3. Okay. We've dyed her 3 times by this point. This was the next day. I let it sit overnight. I said, we're not playing any games. And you guys, yes. Like, this was the color that I was going for initially. Not the exact color, slightly off, but if you can see the train wreck sitting next to her, it's the closest that I've gotten to anything that I was looking for thus far. So I said, you know what? Let me go in. Let me clean her up very, very good. Get all her little crevices, all her little corners. And as you can see, that tan tone is really starting to pop out very, very well now. I don't know if you noticed what I've been trying to create, but I wanted a Blasian doll, like a black and Asian kind of mix, because I realized that's the one doll that's missing from my lineup is a Blasian doll. So here I am kind of creating my little Blasian doll-esque kind of like thing. So I'm using my little brush to really clean out those little crevices and like get the color not all the way off, but at least get it off of those places where I can tell there's excess color, where it's like extremely black. And then I went back in with some soap because I knew in the fabric area it was gonna be a little bit darkened, and I wanted to make sure that I could get as much of that color out as possible. So I spent some time washing that very good, getting into those little corners, getting into those little crevices, turning my water up on hot, and just going to town. And here I am, trying to get as many of those, like, I guess, dark spots off as possible, using my brush to really get in there and just make it all even and make it one color. Here's what we got in the end after I pulled her out of the dryer. I will say she has an even tone except for this one mark back here. The rest of it seems to be pretty even. She has some highs and lows. It gives me very much human, so I think it came out pretty good. I would say if you want to do like a very fun dye, I would try and do this process. So now here I am stuffing her. As you can see, I stuffed her as fast as possible this time because I have been stuffing and unstuffing, and I've done this girl about 4 times. I'm sick of her. I'm ready to finish, okay? So I also have to do her hair, which is a whole nother process because I wanted to do, oh my gosh, why did I decide to do curls? I wanted to do curls, and I also have to paint her eyes, and so here was the paint her eye process. I painted her eyes using Mr. Super Clear. Then I went ahead and painted them and added another layer of Mr. Super Clear. And I felt like after that, her eyes matched her body pretty, very good. I know that I did end up scratching them, putting them in, and I had to take them off and repaint them again, but I did not even show y'all that process because it stressed me out so much. I was so annoyed. Oh my gosh, this was such a trying process, but I will say the payout was definitely worth it. Here I am putting her eye in that first time, or is this the second time? This is the first time because this was the time. This was the time when her eye kind of got scratched a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop that eye right on in her head, maneuver it around, get it in there, and get homegirl adjusted the way that she should be. Because honestly, by this point of my customization process, I think this is day 4, you guys. I've been working on this for quite some time. Me and this custom, we are bonded at the hip at this point. What I really did love, though, about the custom, I feel like me and her have almost this perfect skin color match. And I will say, as the days went on, I think that the color settled a lot better. And she just started to look a lot better as time went on. So here I am applying her head onto her body. Yes. She has an old kind of Pleasant Company looking colored body. I wanted it to be a little bit more perfectly matched, but I was not about to sit down and dye her any more times. Me and her were done with the dye bowl. Okay, maybe, excuse me, I'm sorry. Maybe one day when I'm older, or maybe in the future, but at the moment where we stand, it's time for her to get her hair done, okay? So let's get started on that. I pulled out my wavy talk. I had it set to about 180, okay? I let it heat up a little bit, and I said, you know what? It is time to get homegirl processed. And that is exactly what we are doing, okay? I put on a little music in the back. I think I was on the phone too, and I was like, all right, let's go ahead and get it started. So here I am just clipping her little neck piece so that she can be clipped off in the back. I think I need to replace it, though, because that one was a little on the larger side. And then after that, I decided, you know what? Let me just wrap her hair around and start my curling process. Now, you guys, I love doing these little tight curls with my wavy talk iron, but I will say it is a process. Normally this takes me about 3 hours to really get really good curls, and it's not because it takes a long time. It's because I go row by row, where I think AG goes maybe about every 2 rows or so, every 3 rows or so. They kind of sporadically make the curls. Me personally, I go row by row so her hair can be full, curly, and thick and cute. Here I am maybe about a quarter of the way I think it was at this point that I definitely took a little break too and was just like, all right, I need like 15 because these curls are stressing me. Although they look very, very nice. And I will say, ever since I curled them, they have been in almost pristine condition. Like the curls have not moved since. And I've played with her. I've like shook her up and around, and I'll definitely say that her hair, it still looks very, very good. Here it is, the all finished hair look. And at this point, I was like, you know what? It is time, okay? She is finished. It is time to get her dressed. So here I am putting her in an outfit. As I did say before, she does have that like kind of white-bodied American Girl look. So with that being said, I wanted to put her in something that kind of represented that. So I pulled out one of my old American Girl outfits from like, not even a Truly Me, from like a Just Like You, okay? And I decided that that would be her look because she does have like that older kind of doll look. I opted to put her in some really fun sneakers. I don't know. I told y'all already I like fabric sneakers. So I just pulled out some really cute fabric sneakers to go alongside her little socks. And then after that, I did get one of the newer dolls and I wanted to put her in this skirt. So I did put her inside of this skirt. Although I will say in my new collection, I know that I definitely went back and changed her into like the long skirt. And do y'all remember this vest? Like, oh my God, classic, like classic, okay? She just looks like one of those vintage dolls who's just been brought into modern times. Then last but not least, I wanted to do her hair. I kind of wanted to do a little funky style, but I ended up just going for something simple. I took a red clippy, I put her hair back, and bam. Bam. Yes, after years and years of customizing, you guys, check it out. Like, oh my, this doll right here stressed me out. But I will say the end results were so beautiful. I think she came out exactly how I wanted her to. I'm so happy about how much time I spent on her. I was happy to put her in my collection with all the rest of my beautiful dolls. I was trying to move her out the way so I could put her next to Corinne so you could really see the difference between her, Corinne, and Moana, because those are my only three like kind of, Corinne dolls. And I think of the three of them, she does look very unique. You can tell she's kind of like a blend of Moana and a blend of Corinne. Like you could tell something went on there. Like that doll has a story. Like you can definitely tell that she does. But looking at the three of them together, I like that each one has their unique characteristics. She's not just a copy of Corinne. Like she's her own doll, and I actually really do appreciate that. So with all that being said, I'm glad that you sat through this whole entire thing with me. Please make sure you like, comment, tell me what you think about her, okay? I'm building a community here. Share, subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Badboydolls out. Bye.